she find the mark? Goes into the pocket. Perkins did well just to bring it to ground. Groves Little, so creative, around the body. First goal in AFLW. This is what the good sides do. They do it from start to finish, no matter the scoreline. Top of the square, Pearce had an almost day. Kate Hall, again front and square.
Again, it's Button, just the 1%ers. She's so good in that. Morris Dalton back to Blackburn. Blackburn goes for home. It needs to swing to the left, and it does.
Well, what a goal from the Bulldogs skipper, and of course, what a game we were treated to at Norwood Oval. We will get to that in just a minute. It is great to have your company on the W Show. Thanks to NAB. Hope you've had a fantastic weekend. We're going to unpack all of round 6 right here, right now, and to help me do all of that is our award-winning journalist Sarah Black and, of course, Melbourne star Libby Birch. Welcome, ladies.
Thanks for having me again.
Yeah. What a weekend of footy, and Sunday, wow.
I know, the ground went probably as expected until, I think we saved the best till last.
Yeah. Terrific.
Yeah, we certainly did. It was an incredible game. So we might as well just start with that, because the Bulldogs, their first win on the road in 1,107 days. They were impressive, and it came right down to the wire. 1 point to hand the Crows the first loss of the season. Down 2 on the bench as well, Sarah. It was a stinking hot day. The odds were against them. They held on.
Yeah, it's probably where the Bulldogs are at their best, I think, when they've got their backs to the wall and there's no expectation whatsoever. Funnily enough, their last win on the road came against Adelaide 2 years ago in 2019, 3 years ago now. Yeah. So they did have a little bit of confidence there. And speaking to some of the girls who'd played the Crows last year when they got thumped, they were really keen to make amends after their performance last year against them, and they did so in style.
Were you part of that game?
Yeah, I was. Bringing back memories. They were prolific in that game, and I can remember them kicking a lot of points on us, and we got over the line by 1 point at that stage. So, yeah, a great win by the Bulldogs.
All right, well, let's do a bit of a deep dive, Libby, because I know you want to talk about that opening quarter from the Bulldogs. They just blew the Crows out of the water, kicking 4 goals, 1 behind 25, the highest score the Crows have conceded in a first quarter this season. Talk me through how they did it.
Yeah, well, as you can see here, they were just so clean in that first quarter. They had such perfect method in the way that they wanted to win the ball. And at the end of the first quarter, they were up on contested and uncontested possessions, which has been Adelaide's game throughout this entire competition. So they really beat Adelaide at their own game, which was credit to them. They had nothing to lose, and Adelaide, I suppose, had the pressure of having not lost a game this season. But it just shows if you rock up and hunt the footy and play a clean contested brand of footy, you can get the results on the board.
And there were question marks over the Dogs' forward line after the loss of Izzy Huntington. And then Brooke Lachlan goes down also with concussion. So they're 2 of your mainstays not playing in this game. But Libby, how did you see the forward line function without them? Obviously, Bonnie hit the scoreboard a bit. And it was good to see Nell Morris Dalton bob up for a goal or two too.
Yeah, I thought they were terrific. They had really great method from their midfield into their forward line. It was great to see Ali Blackburn getting on the scoreboard. And I just thought their connection and their speed of ball movement beat the defence of Adelaide, because the way we spoke about Adelaide a couple of weeks ago, but they love when teams play slow because they can set up the defence, and I think Western Bulldogs just bypass that by the speed of ball movement.
I love the fact too that we had Ellie Blackburn on the W Show last week, and we talked about whether the Crows were unbeatable or not, and she said no way, and we're going to show them on Sunday, and they did exactly that. So well done to Ellie, and of course the Bulldogs. That game, an absolute thriller, and it was actually the perfect way to mark the 250th AFLW game, a nice little milestone for the competition. So it made me think, what are those memorable moments from the last sort of 6 years? I think mine personally has to be the 53,034 fans that were jam-packed into the Adelaide Oval to see that 2019 grand final, which seems a lifetime ago. That was just a magnificent moment, not just for the AFLW competition, but of course for sport, women's sport in this country. Sarah, what about you?
I'm impressed you can remember that crowd figure off the top of your head there, Nat. You've done well. But I'm going to stick with the Doggies theme. And their game against Fremantle, it was the final round of 2020 before everything was shut down.
Yeah.
At the time, it was the highest cumulative score we've seen in AFLW. And I think it was just a really promising sign of the style of footy that AFLW can eventually become.
Yeah, wow. And I think for me, it has to be the moment this year when we knew that there was going to be 18 teams in the competition in 2023. I just think that's a huge milestone for the competition and for all the women that have pushed so hard to have, an equal competition, 18 teams aside.
Love that. Even more footy for us to watch, which we absolutely love. Now, I want to ask you, Libby, about your new teammate in Taylor Harris. 11 goals so far this season. We can really see, apart from the obvious impact that she's having on the scoreboard, but structurally as well, what she has meant to this Demon side. Can you give us some insight onto what effect she's been having on the team?
Yeah, well, as you can see from the footage, she's just making a contest of everything, and if she doesn't mark it, she's bringing it to ground for our small forwards like Kate Hoare, and I would even call Daisy a small forward at times. But her ability just to make a contest is something that we've been missing over the last couple of years from our tall forwards, and I think that that's really adding an edge in our ability to keep the ball in our forward 50, which has been another issue over the last couple of years for us.
Now, Pepper Randall and Taylor were having a little bit of a nice battle, shall we call it. It did get quite heated at times, so we will touch on that in a moment. But there was an incident that we sort of need to touch on, and that was late in the game. It was a contest. It looked like a marking contest, really. Taylor Harris has gone in, and unfortunately, Erin McKinnon came off second best. This was Taylor talking about it after the game.
Yeah, it was definitely a hotly contested game, and if the footy's in my area and I can impact to try and stop the other team from getting it, then I have to. That's my job, and that's all I did. I just had eyes for the footy. I hope, I think it was Erin, I hope she's okay. No one wants anyone to get hurt, but it's just footy, and this is how we play, and we try to get the ball, and that's what our coach instructed us, so that's what I'll do. If I get a shot on goal, I'll try and get it, but obviously the first one, not ideal, and I'm sure I'll get told how I am for that, but that's all right.
Sarah, I want to get your take on that incident. It looked like Pepper Randall has actually pushed Taylor a little bit too when she's gone in for that mark.
Yeah, I think this is a pretty clear-cut football incident. Yeah. It's a collision. It happens. Unfortunately, we love the high-flying aspect of Taylor's game and of AFL in general. And unfortunately, accidents do happen. We hope that Erin's okay because she looked pretty groggy after that. But yeah, I think Taylor will be all right out of this.
She sort of defended herself there, Libby, in that post-match interview. But how much, you've got to walk a fine balance. That we all know that. You don't want to get rubbed out. That does your team a disservice. But as a teammate, how much do you actually really love the heat that she brings to the contest?
Oh, it's who she is. That's her strength, and that's why we've got her. To really crash the packs and to be that strong, aggressive forward that really does put fear into the opposition teammates. That's just exactly what we want from her. That's her role for this team. But on that, Nat, I think that sort of defensiveness, I think it does show the impact that, sometimes the critical nature of our game and of women's sport can have on an individual and on all of us. So I think that's a really important part that we continue to support our players through, all their endeavours.
Yep, that's a very good point indeed. We also have to shout out another one of your teammates in Ali Brown because she played VFLW at Casey in the heat on Saturday morning, clocks up 9.4 Ks and then gets the call up to the AFLW side last minute and was intercepting everything. Was she completely cooked after this game? Because I would have been after the first.
Yeah, she was saying to me in the warm-up, I've had about 3 no-dos, so she was she was pumped with a bit of no-dos, but a terrific effort by Ali there to come in as an emergency, having played a full game of VFLW, and to lay down a run-down tackle from that. And I think she was just outside the 50. So her running ability was shown in pre-season, but again on show there, and an absolute credit to her to be up and playing for AFLW.
That was absolutely an incredible effort, no doubt. Speaking of unsung heroes, there is one at the Dockers because we often just talk about Kiara Bowers, Hayley Miller, but what about Cara Antonio in 2022, currently 5th in the competition for average score involvements, and she actually is a really crucial cog in the side, isn't she, Sarah?
She definitely is. We've spoken about how the lack of Kiara Bowers is sort of, they've lost some footy IQ and some smart play and opening up the angles. Well, that's exactly what Kara does provide. She's just a really key linking player between that midfield and the forward line. And Libby, how important is it to have that conduit and that experience up forward? You've got it in Daisy Pearce.
Yeah, it's so important, particularly for the younger players that are coming through. And I just think that she's such a selfless player in the way that she sets up her teammates in front of goal. Like, there was numerous occasions there on that footage where she could have blasted away and had a shot for goal, but just the composure to get the hands free and get her teammates involved has just been a really, really important part in how Fremantle are playing.
From one Antonio to another, and Ebony has absolutely wowed us with some fantastic goals this season. But how about this Mark of the Year contender? Look at this. And it's actually accidental in some ways, because I know we're raving about how good a mark, but look at this. It bounces off her stomach pretty much and right into her lap. I would say that's a pretty perfect mark for mine.
And quick reflexes too, because I'm sure, not that I'd ever get that high off the ground. But
Don't sell yourself short.
If that ball had bounced off me, it would have dribbled away. So, you know, very quick reflexes to pull it in. And she's had an outstanding season.
She has indeed. Well, our NAB AFLW Rising Stars for round 5 were Carlton's Mimi Hill and Adelaide Ruck in Montana McKinnon. Let's find out a little bit more about them.
Jennifer Lawrence, she's pretty good.
Oh, actually, I used to really like Amanda Bynes until she went off the rails. So there you go.
Probably a monkey. They're pretty cute.
A meerkat, maybe, run around everywhere. It's kind of cute.
I don't read books. I couldn't even tell you. No idea.
Someone lent me a book when I did my knee called The Obstacle Is the Way. It's very inspirational.
I'm gonna go with Abby Ballard. She's just little, she just gets in the way.
Oh, Brooke Vickers again.
I probably spend the most time with Caitlin, Goldie, us in the rucks. We spend a fair bit of time together.
Oh, no, I don't want to do that. They're all great.
I like watching Riley O'Brien play.
Fish. I really like watching Fish play.
I like Cardi B, I rap her songs, that's about it.
Not talented. Actually, no, I'm really good at ripsticking. You know those ripstick things? Yeah. I can do some tricks and stuff, yeah.
Snowboarding.
The bobsled one, because I can run and push it. Yeah, sure. It looks terrifying though, so I actually know. That's not my answer either, I don't know.
Very tall, can be a bit awkward, but he's fun.
Charismatic, happy, loud.
Bit awkward. I hope the coach doesn't watch that one. I'd like to get from each of you the zoo animal that you would have as a pet.
I've drawn a bit of a blank. Let's go with the monkey.
A monkey. Okay, probably small and easy.
A dolphin.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's cool.
Out in the pool in the back.
Oh, you need a really big pool, Libby.
Very practical.
How do you think your dog would go?
Yeah, no, I think you'd love it. Bit of fun.
Well, last week we talked about Collingwood's forward line woes and what they could do to fix it, and also what they could do to help Chloe Molloy. And in the end, it was the move that we'd all been waiting for from coach Steve Simons. Chloe ended up pushing up the ground, playing a little bit higher, and Sarah, it worked wonders for her.
Yeah, it really did. She can get a little bit stuck, as we've seen the last couple of weeks. If the ball's not getting down there, she's one of your best players. She's wasted deep forward. So to have her influence, and you can just see she's carving up the ground here against the Eagles. They had a bit of a revamp forward line as well as a consequence. And I think it worked really well.
Well, yeah, no Sabrina Frederick, a big talking point for them as well, because we spoke about how she hasn't really come on as they probably would have liked. Stacey Livingston goes forward in attack. Is Collingwood much more dangerous when Chloe is pushing higher up the ground? You'd hate to see her if you were playing against her.
100%. I think that it's great that they pushed her up the ground to get her around the ball a little bit more, because, as you can see, her ball use is just so clever. And as a defender, you never know what's going to happen when Chloe's around the ball. And I just think she just hasn't had the opportunities, particularly over the last couple of weeks, with Collingwood not getting as many inside 50s. And being that deep forward is really about, getting a lot of opportunities to make, your score on the board. And if she hasn't had that, then I don't think she's been given the chance to really flourish.
Nah.
So I think we'll see her starting, in the midfield or in the high forward for the rest of the season.
Well, the game against the Pies was West Coast 3rd in 10 days. It was a very, very hot day. The game played in the middle of the day as well, so the hottest part of the day. This was Coach Michael Pryor after the match.
Not ideal to be playing in the middle of the day in the heat. And I think we got an extra 2 minutes break at half time. So probably something we need to look at as an organisation and look after our athletes a little bit better than probably what we did today.
So Michael Pryor's not the only one concerned, because the Lions right now are in the midst of playing 4 games in 15 days, including a trip to Perth, and their former premiership player in Lauren Arnell had this to say on Twitter a couple of days ago. Libby, are we starting to stretch the players too thin here?
Yeah, I think Lauren makes a great point, and she's being truthful to what the reality is of our game at the moment, is that we are being pushed to try and get this season done, and there is that fine balance of looking after player welfare, but then also making sure that we have a game to show our fans. But yeah, it is 4 games in 15 days is a huge challenge for any player, male or female, for any athlete, in fact. So I think it'll be huge for Brisbane to get through that.
Yeah, and the Dockers had 4 in 16 days just off the back of that, so they've been through their stretch. Speaking to Craig Starcevich post-match, I was interested in his views, seeing as that was what Lauren's view was.
Yeah.
But he was very positive, quite surprisingly positive about the whole situation, saying that it's something that the club as a whole will embrace, and that, most pertinently, they're much happier to have this intense period right now than they would be in rounds 9 and 10 heading towards finals.
I mean, we're all aware it's a really difficult situation right now, where it's another COVID-affected season. Everyone's trying to get the season done as quickly as they can so we can stick to that April 2 grand final date. But talk me through, because the heat is another factor. Obviously, playing in summer, it's been spoken about a lot. Does it take you longer to actually recover from a game? Like, you played on Saturday, it was about 29 degrees. Are you feeling the effects last longer?
Yeah, oh, absolutely. It's you can definitely tell a difference. We had a training session. We had a cool spot, a couple of days of coolness, and everyone post training was like, "Oh my God, I feel $1 million."
Yeah.
So it was just the feeling of feeling fresh. The heat has just sucked so much out of everyone, and it's the consistent heat as well that just puts a lot of pressure on your body, and it feels like you can't get enough water in to replace what you're losing. But also just the energy levels of the sun, and just the fact that we're working full time and playing in tough conditions is difficult.
You need an IV drip after a game. I need that on a normal day. I do want to ask you one more on this one. If you had your perfect scenario for you, when would the W season be played?
I would play it alongside the men's season. I don't feel like we need to have clear air necessarily. I just think that if we can get the best stadiums and the best grounds and the best opportunity to play in good conditions, then I say we can play whenever we need to play. But I would say, during the men's season is fine.
Perhaps even at Marvel Stadium.
Yeah.
Where there is no wind, which is where Sarah found herself on Sunday at Trevor Barker Oval. She was nearly blown out of the venue and onto the beach. It was so windy down there. The Saints nearly clinched their first win of the season, Sarah, and Caitlin Greiser was excellent, but the Saints came hard in that final term, and Brisbane were lucky to hold on.
They really were, and you look at the score, 3-13, the Lions, if we're being honest, the Lions should have won by a lot more. But what was really pleasing was that the Saints' endeavour to come back in that fourth quarter, kick those 2 goals, and they never dropped their head. They were playing the reigning premier. They were without Liv Vesely and Rosie Dillon as well, on top of Tiana Smith and Georgia Patrikios. So it's a very understrength midfield. But they weren't bowed, and they really fought out the match. So winless, but pleasing signs.
We have to talk about the Gold Coast Suns, because they are one of the much improved sides, probably the surprise packet really for 2022. They're sitting 3-2, just outside the top 6 after they beat the Cats on Friday night. Will they sneak into finals, Sarah? Have you got your calculator out? Are you doing the maths? It's probably between Collingwood, Gold Coast, throw in the Bulldogs as well, although their percentage isn't as good.
Yeah, and the matchups are really interesting too. The Lions are going to be a tough ask, but then the Dogs, the Saints and Carlton, and then Collingwood in the last round. Will we be waiting on that one to decide the top 6?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. You've really enjoyed watching the Suns. Where's that improvement come from?
I really think it's come from their ability to win contested possession around the ground. They've had really even contributors from their forward line right through to their back line, and it's their ability to get first use, and that really sets you up to win the game of footy.
Well, this is the ladder, so we'll just double check in and see how it's all going. Of course, Fremantle up the top there, Adelaide, Melbourne, the Kangaroos, Brisbane, then you see Collingwood, Gold Coast, the Western Bulldogs. You probably think maybe not for the Giants at this point, but yeah, it's certainly going to be tight for that last spot, I think, in the top 6. All right, before we go, it's time to take a look at what's been trending on social media, and we start with Chloe Malloy because the Prize pre-game posted this. She delivered, of course, and then gave herself a bit of a self 5. We don't mind that, do we, Sarah?
No, not at all.
And what about this? The Brisbane Lions come down to Melbourne, a train on the road. Guys, it's a tram. Have you not seen one before? Come on.
Good awareness from the social media coordinator there to jump on that one too.
I know, and this was Courtney Hodder on the plane, the Mile High Tea Club she has joined. Scones on the plane. Look at this. How good is this?
I'd like to be on that plane.
I know. Is there anything Courtney Hodder can't do? She's brought her own high tea on the plane. Like, you know, airline food sometimes can be a little bit questionable. She's just diverted that completely, made her own scones, and as we can see here, presented them to one of the coaching staff.
That's a little bit too far, isn't it? Coaches.
She's trying to get a full game, I think, for that match.
Who at your team at the D's would bake scones and then give it to the coaches? There's a bit of a suck up around there.
Probably me.
Oh my God, I love that. Can you please bring us some scones next week? And of course, it was Toyota Good for Footy round on the weekend, and their Gear Grants program has given 100 women's footy teams across the country, like these clubs here, the money they need to get brand new, specially designed uniforms. So a shout out to Toyota for their Gear Grants program. And that is all we have time for on the W Show. Libby has to go and make us some scones, but thank you so much for coming in today. It's great to have you on.
Thanks. No, let's bring on the rest of the season, eh?
Exactly. Good luck. And Sarah, as always, great to see you.
It's a pleasure, Nat.
For all of Sarah's fantastic work, you can head to women's.afl and the AFLW Live app. Thank you so much for joining us on the W Show. Thanks to Nab. We'll see you next week.